Thank you very much, Larry. First of all, welcome to Chicago and good morning. I'm very excited to be here to meet many of the people who have made a difference in cities around the world. I deeply appreciate your creativity and your commitment to cities as well as to the environment. I'm very proud of Chicago because the history of Chicago has always been change, and we've always changed throughout our great history. We respect the past, we live in the present, but most importantly, we're always looking to the future. And at the same time, my role is to make this city more livable on behalf of all the citizens. And one of the greatest commitments I've made to the quality of public education. If you look at cities throughout the world, most people are fleeing cities. They're coming into cities, but many of them are coming in for various reasons. But once they make so much money, they leave because of the lack of quality education. And that's why a number of years ago, I decided to take responsibility for the Chicago Public Schools. And that I'm the only mayor that has full responsibility on a daily basis so that people of all incomes can send their children and get a good quality education. And I said that is the key in the future of cities in America and throughout the world. At the same time, we have to understand why cities were built and what was the reason they're existing today. And you have to go in the history of those cities and find out what they're going to be in the future as industries change throughout the country. When we look at the history of our great city, the skyscraper and great innovations have taken place in our city. And when we think back in 1881, a Massachusetts investor named Peter Brooks told his property manager here in Chicago to buy a lot at Monroe Street between Dearborn and Clark if he could get it for $100,000. Brooks said he had in mind a building large enough to warrant an elevator, an incredible 10-story building. He also said this in 1881, tall buildings will pay well in Chicago hereafter, and sooner or later a way will be found to erect them, end of quote. Burnham and Root building built that building for Brooks. It was called the Montauk, and as someone wrote at that time, the very idea of such a building amazed the building and architectural world, end of quote. And sooner or later, rather than later, architects and engineers and investors, many of them visionaries and risk takers, found ways to erect these tall buildings. For most of the time since then, excluding perhaps the Great Depression and World War II, building tall and then super tall buildings have been a major factor in the economy of our country. It has created jobs and revenue, which makes it possible for cities like Chicago to support programs that are necessary to improve the quality of life here in our community. I tell people, look at Chicago, we should be thankful we have our skyscrapers. We would have destroyed more farmland if we'd taken all the people in these skyscrapers and set them down on the beautiful land of Illinois. Of course, presently, now we are faced with the worst economic times most of us can remember, times that test the strength of many of our residents who are struggling to find jobs on a daily basis, to keep their homes and even pay their bills. The industry that builds tall buildings is in transition. The conference is about looking at the challenges presented by global warming, the recession, and trying in some ways to predict the tall building environment of the future. Cities like Chicago are critical, a period of transition too. They're faced with responsibility of helping people meet their daily economic challenges and, of course, planning for the city's future. My belief in this, I think the men and women who invented skyscrapers share it. Those who plan for the future, who actively look ahead for bigger opportunities, will not only survive, but also will thrive. Yes, we're in a recession now. It will be a while before things will get better. But we know that it won't always be the case. Our goal in Chicago is to position Chicago to reap the benefits of the better times to come. And that's why in 2010's budget, I proposed this week, we used every possible creative approach to allow us to maintain our basic services, better manage government, do more with less, and of course, protect our taxpayers. Some people will say we should have cut essential services or raised taxes to balance the budget, but I fully disagree. During these tough economic times, that's the last thing you want to do with people. The budget includes a capital program, which many cities are postponing, to rebuild streets, sewers, sidewalks, alleys. In the coming years, we will build new fire stations, police stations, and many, many libraries. It includes a major collaboration between government, and the Chicago business community, focused on using resources more effectively to recruit and retain businesses and trade shows in Chicago. It will invest $1 billion in federal economic stimulus funds in areas such as job training, street resurfacing, energy efficiency to create jobs and help start the economy moving forward. The bottom line is that government must provide help and hope in these very difficult times. Good leaders must communicate hope and must carry out plans that turn hope into reality. In Chicago, we believe the essential idea on which cities must base their strategies for moving forward is very simple. They must improve the quality of life for all their residents. One of the major components of our strategy is to attract people and jobs and remain competitive in the global market is our commitment to the environment. We have undertaken hundreds of initiatives aimed at making Chicago the most environmentally friendly city in the world, and some of them have an impact on how tall buildings are being built. And so instead of mandating to the business community, I really believe government should lead by example. Most governments only mandate. They never lead by example. They always exempt themselves. But here in Chicago, we have led by example. In a newspaper story about this meeting, the question was raised about whether sustainability and green design are just some kind of a trophy thing. I can tell you that in Chicago, green buildings don't represent a trophy. They are essential part of our environmental efforts that save energy and money. As we rehab existing city buildings and construct new ones, we follow green building policies. Our Center for Green Technology, we rehab the former industrial site on the west side of Chicago, one of the first municipal buildings in the world to be awarded a platinum rating by the U.S. Green Building Council. Our Green Home program is for builders and developers who are constructing new residential units in Chicago or renovating existing units. It gives points to builders for every sustainable technique and material used in the construction of a new home or residential building, can qualify the projects for expedited building permits, which are very important to builders and developers. In 2004, when our zoning ordinance was rewritten, it enhanced the city's ability to influence building design, and I believe we have made a good use of our expanded role. In fact, one of the local papers said Chicago's design standards are rising, aided by part of a new policy from City Hall. People want to live in a metropolitan area because they offer more opportunities, more choices, and of course, more people. They also want open space. They want nice parks, clean beaches, jogging paths, bike trails, flowers, trees, grass. They want clean and pure water. Our goal is to ensure that tall buildings complement these desires and improve the quality of life for everyone in Chicago, not just for the people who live or work in them. I think the attitude is being embraced by developers. And the key is, how do you educate developers, architects, engineers, construction people? All those, really have to educate them on a daily basis. For example, 2 weeks ago, we announced the city had received a $15 million grant to be extended to expand the use of alternative fuels and vehicles. We made the announcement at the new Aqua Tower, where developers Jim Lohenberger and Joel Carlins have already installed electric car charging stations to make it easier for people to drive electric cars. And this week, Jupiter Realty Company topped off a new 50-story building, the first apartment tower to be constructed in the Central Business District in 15 years. It's expected to be the newest LEED certified high-rise rental residence in Chicago. But remember, only a small part of Chicago, about 2 square miles, are downtown along the lakefront, is really suitable for building tall buildings. Let me mention a few ways Chicago has led by example over the years to improve the natural environment and make people's lives better in the 232 square miles. Last year, we unveiled the Chicago Climate Action Plan, a comprehensive and detailed strategy to help lower greenhouse gas emissions, address climate change throughout the entire city. That includes the business, residents, institutions, and government itself. Other cities have set similar goals, but Chicago plan is the first both to identify emission sources, anticipated impacts of climate change, and propose ideas that specifically respond to the research that we had. We have aggressively pursuing green infrastructure throughout the city to keep clean stormwater out of the sewers and reduce the urban heat island impact. Since I became mayor, we have planted over 600,000 trees, landscaped more than 90 miles of medians on our major streets. We have added more than 200 acres of new parks, green space throughout the city, including more than 100 campus parks adjacent to every one of our public schools. Parks and open space are essential building blocks of strong neighborhoods. On Arbor Day this year, we announced the Chicago Tree Initiative, which brings together resources of 20 agencies and organizations to plant, care for, and advocate for trees. We're hoping to inspire a civic and social movement that will involve the city, the green industry, the business community, and their private homeowners, improving our urban forest. Chicago has over 1,900 miles of alleyways, the most of any city in the world. Through our Green Alley program, we have tested a range of techniques such as permeable pavers, permeable concrete. We are now making these techniques the standard operating procedure for rebuilding alleys and many other construction projects here in our city. We have established a green business strategy program in which we work with Chicago companies to help them save money by becoming more sensitive to the environment. As part of a major expansion of McCormick Place Convention Center, we have built a 3,000-foot tunnel to carry clean rainwater, such as today, from the roof of Lake Michigan. This will keep approximately 55 million gallons of rainwater out of a sewer system. And our Rain Barrel program provides subsidized rain barrels to residents, encourage them to both conserve water, disconnect their downspouts to keep storm water out of our sewer system. Of course, Chicago is a leader among cities in the use of green roofs. We now have 600 green roofs completed or underway, totaling more than 7 million square feet. We have planted our first roof garden in City Hall in the year 2000. It is 21,000 square feet with nearly 150 different species of plants. We have 2 beehives which produce honey that's sold to benefit our after-school program for teenagers in Chicago. We have promoted the construction of green roofs through a combination of requirements and incentives, including a number of policies administered by various city departments. There is a sustainable development policy which places green building requirements on any project that receives city funds, bonds, or tax breaks. Our Green Roof Improvement Program provided matching grants to construct green roofs on existing buildings in the central area, the downtown area of Chicago. Our stormwater ordinance identifies green roofs as one of the ways in which developers may meet the requirements of this ordinance. Even now, in the middle of the economic downturn, Chicago is using every available tool to improve the environment. For example, we are using money from the federal economic stimulus program to create 650 jobs to do such things as deconstructing city-owned buildings, preparing deconstructed materials for reuse, planting trees, landscaping, offering green job training, work experience in the growing fields of locally grown organic agricultural, handmade sustainability products, and recycling services, and many more. The overreaching reason to do these things is to make Chicago a shining example of how a large city can live in harmony with its environment. As a result, be a better place for every resident to live, to work, and of course, raise their family. In doing so, we're improving public health. We are saving money, creating jobs, enhancing the quality of life, and leaving a lasting legacy for future generations. As the skyscraper continues to evolve, it must, and I'm sure it will, help us reach all the goals that I pointed out. Thank you very much.
So we'll be able to take a couple of questions for Mayor Daley, and stand up if you've got, like to get a microphone. And I'd like to start out with, as you have shown a very pro-development attitude and lead by example and make Chicago a shining example, what are some of the personal challenges that you have to overcome to maintain this mindset?
Well, I think you just have to have a commitment in regards to development that it is creating jobs, it is good for the environment, and in the long run, it really saves money for the city. It saves money for the developer and the owner of the building. And so you really have to educate more people how important all these programs are, and especially skyscrapers, how important to the environment. As I said, if we didn't have the skyscrapers here in our city, if you just lay all the office buildings out flat, we would destroy more farmland, and America is destroying more farmland than most countries in the world, and we should stop doing that.
Okay.
One up there.
Question up here?
Yes. Don Ely, Newcon Construction Mayor. Do you see a future in which Chicago would be again a world leader with the world's tallest building?
Oh, I hope so, sure. I'm always looking for developers and architects and all those who, and the financing for taller buildings, yes. I think it's important for us. It really enhances the skyline. It shows that we're willing to challenge our city, and especially taller skyscrapers, yes, I'm 100% for it.
Next question here?
Mayor Daley, David Scott from the Council on Tall Buildings. You've explained what the city is doing, which is really fantastic. Can you tell us, do you think developers are doing enough? And how much arm twisting do you have to do to make them do what you want?
Well, you know, I have found out the architects are the key. It's not the developers. You know, you have to be careful of developers, because as the architect comes forward and designs a wonderful building, and then when you sit down and talk to the architect and developer, and I look at it, that's the agreement I'm making. Don't later on change that. And you have people coming in, the developers or the owners of the building, trying to change what they present to me. And I tell them, what you present to me, that's what you're going to build. There's no cost cutting now, and you agreed to this building, and let's keep it as is. Because I have found out many times during the process, they'll come back and they say, well, we'd like to take 8 floors off the top, or we used to like to do this, and the design changes completely. And I've always said, what you present to us as a city, that's what you're going to build. And it's very important to keep your word.
Next question?
Yes, my name is C.C. Yao from Vancouver, Canada, a practicing engineer. I had the opportunity serving on Vancouver Urban Design Panel for 2 years. And Vancouver has been quite successful to encourage people to live in downtown core by building a lot of high-rise residential buildings. However, one of the side effects I noticed that these units become less and less affordable. So the developers start to build some units like 300, 400 square feet, many of them with bedroom without windows. And I don't think it's very livable, although we like to think Vancouver is the most livable city. So the question for you is the city of Chicago facing similar challenges? If so, how would you meet it?
Well, I think every city facing serious challenges dealing with the real estate market, both commercial and residential. It's not only here, but it's throughout the world. They're trying to figure out what is the value of buildings, what is the value of land. That is one of the most serious problems facing not only America, but the world. What is the real value? And with this recession, and that's what's coming to play. It's going to be coming to play for the next 2 or 3 years. You have to make sure that we're always looking at the quality of buildings, and you always have to keep the quality strong and not just quantity. At the same time, you always have to look for affordable housing and market rate housing. It goes hand in hand. You need affordable housing and market rate housing at the same time. And all the buildings have to be built in respect to the environment. And that's one thing, if you don't have, you're not going to sell many of these apartments or buildings if it doesn't respect the environment inside and out. And so what we try to do is sit down with developers and the architects and the owner of land and find out what type of building they're going to build and how good it is for their tenants and for the city. That is the highest priority that we have in our planning process.
Okay. Next question here.
Mayor Daley, Robert Reed with Civil Engineering Magazine. From your experience, when a new project comes in, a big new project, hotel or office, to what extent does it actually bring in new business versus just sort of take business from older existing projects?
No, it doesn't. Like in the downtown area, we have found out a lot of the historical buildings, they've lost tenants, commercial tenants, most all of them have. And so how do you protect them for the future? So we enacted a TIF, Tax Increment Financing District, for buildings all the way through almost to the 70s, to be very frank. And an example is the Willis Tower, the formerly Sears Tower. And we put a TIF district on it. They're retrofitting their heating, air conditioning, and other things. And We put about $85 million into that. We're looking at all the buildings downtown so we can create TIF districts so they can restore and rebuild their air conditioning, heating, windows, and so they can take commercial tenants or residential buildings, turn them to residential buildings. Otherwise, they're going to be vacant. There will be no use at all. And that's what we're looking at. We have to be able to preserve these, at the same time help the owner of the building to retrofit these buildings according to the new environmental standards that everybody wants, any type of tenant you get in these buildings. And that has helped us tremendously.
Okay. Another question here?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Would you be willing to educate other mayors elsewhere in the world who are challenged with good governance or visionary leadership? I come from Manila. And one thing we have in common with Chicago, it was master planned by Daniel Burnham, 1905. Chicago is such a great city now. I'm not sure I can say the same thing about my city. So would you be willing to, let's say, have a mayor's forum for cities elsewhere in the world that are challenged with good governance and visionary leadership?
We just had, last year, every April, we have a conference at University of Illinois, Chicago campus, and the mayor from Manila was there last year. We have mayors from around the world, about 60, 70 mayors that come together on challenges for cities and working relationship with mayors. And I've always told mayors is you can't live in the past. If you live in the past and your whole city's living in the past, there's no future. And there's not a future for the city. People move and relocate, especially businesses will, to a city that's always changing and advancing in regards to the economic issues of the day. And cities always have to change. They cannot live in the past. But we have many forums that we get together with mayors around the world, right here in Chicago.
Thank you, sir.
I think we have time for another question.
Carol Codmoney, University of Illinois, Chicago. Mayor Daley, to what extent skyscrapers are money maker or money loser in Chicago?
Money makers, strictly money makers.
To what extent?
Well, first of all, the extent of the construction. First, the architects, engineers, all the professional services. Then, in turn, all the men and women that worked in regards to putting the building up, as well as their tenants coming in, real estate taxes, sales tax, new businesses, new corporate headquarters, North American headquarters for headquarters for many businesses moving into Chicago. So we have found out it's always an economic plus, any skyscraper in Chicago.
Does it change with our recession right now?
Well, it's a little difficult now. Everybody knows the market is difficult. But in the long run, you have to believe, in the long run, if you build a skyscraper, it will be very profitable. You have to really believe in that.
So it is on belief basis?
Both economic basis, too. I mean, you know, it's not just belief, but you have to understand that the recession will not be forever. If it is, you won't have North Chicago. You won't be living up there anymore. It'll be just an isolated community, and more people live in metropolitan big cities. And so you have to believe in that. And it's also economic investment. They know what they're doing before they put the money in.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I have one last question here.
Thank you. My name is Jan Klerks, Council Hall Buildings. My definition of a pleasant city center is a very walkable city center, one you like to walk through. And if I walk through a loop, I mean, I love it. I love looking up and I love the architecture and everything. But I also notice that it seems to be that it's only a McDonald's, a Dunkin' Donuts, and a Walgreens, and that's pretty much it. Do you consider it the responsibility of the city to take care of the ground level usage and what is going on street level underneath the tall buildings?
Oh, yeah, we have more students than any other city going to school on a daily basis. We have more dormitories, more students, more people live in the downtown area than we've ever done in the history of Chicago. And you can see the development going on, taking over older buildings, construction new buildings throughout the downtown area. So you're really changing your downtown area. Historically, it was only for commercial reasons. In America, it was only for commercial reasons. And now it's changing both to a 24-hour environment downtown cities were, but historically they're only used 8 hours a day. In order to put the investment into all the infrastructure, you have to use it 7 days a week, almost 24 hours a day. So that's at theaters, residential buildings, hotels, all types of new stores that you're looking for, especially smaller stores. It's very difficult now with this recession. Small businesses are hurting drastically.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mayor Daley. Let's give him a great round of applause.
Okay, thank you.